Hello everyone. Today let's talk about the fourth part of the course in printing process. Test printing process. Item 2. Registration adjustment. You all know that in the printing operation, registration is also a very important step. The control of registration accuracy can affect the quality of prints. The content of this section mainly includes the following three parts. First, analyze the basic form of misregister. Second, the detection and requirements of registration accuracy. Third, registration adjustment method of printing press. First of all, let's briefly introduce what registration is. Accurate registration is the basic requirement for correct image reproduction. In the offset printing production process, a multicolor print, from outputting film, plate making and printing. Due to the complicated process, many materials and equipment are used to truly achieve the desired registration accuracy. It's not going to happen. The so-called totally registration accuracy is just that the registration error does not exceed a certain range. In printing process, the basic form of inaccurate registration mainly divided into the following categories. First, the registration is inaccurate due to inaccurate positioning. In such a situation, the size of the image does not change. Among them, single-sided unregistered is more common. It refers to the positioning of the second color image on the paper. Is not the same as the positioning of the first color image on the paper. It appears as the position of the paper relative to the impression cylinder is deviated. The reason for this phenomenon is there is an error in the positioning of the paper at front gauge and side gauge. Position deviation during paper transfer. Position deviation caused by gripper on the impression cylinder, etc. And the second is that the front and back are not registrated. For double-sided printing, the accuracy of front and back registration is often difficult to control. This accuracy is generally much lower than the single-sided registration accuracy, mainly because in the paper flipping over, the positioning reference has changed. Generally, when a single-sided printing machine prints the second side, using left to right flipping, the bite edge of the paper remains unchanged, positioning with another side gauge, and sometimes it may also be flipped back and forth. Its front and back registration are more difficult to control. The second scenario, the misregistration is due to image deformation. In this situation, the size of the image has changed. During the printing process, image size changes vary. Even if the location is accurate, color registration is also not accurate. Appear as the distribution of registration accuracy across the entire picture is uneven. Some are more accurate. However, the registration accuracy of other parts is relatively poor. It is a kind of partial registration inaccurate. And this kind of misregistration, compared with the overall misregistration in front, it is more difficult to control. There are many reasons for inaccurate registration, mainly focusing on the first pre-press plate making. It is mainly due to the accuracy of the image setter, development, manual imposition and other errors. The second is due to the deformation of the printing plate, due to the bending of the printing plate during printing, stretching or other deformation. Therefore, it will also cause misregistration. The third case is caused by the deformation of the paper. Paper in the printing process will be deformed due to pressure or moisture, usually produce expansion deformation and extension deformation, stripping deformation, etc. This is also a major reason for misregistration. Of course, the change in the thickness of the plate cylinder liner will also affect registration. In printing process, by increasing the lining of the plate cylinder, it will reduce the radial size of the graphic. Reducing the size of the plate cylinder will increase the radial size of the image and text. Therefore, changes in graphic size will also affect registration. The deformation of the blanket will also affect the registration. including the tightness of the blanket, distortion of the blanket, etc. In printing process, the smaller the plate cylinder, the greater the elongation of the printing plate. The thinner the plate, the smaller the elongation of the plate. These will affect the registration. Therefore, the 4-color printing machine is required. That the elongation of the printing plate should be as consistent as possible. But in printing process, we also need to prevent that the plate broke due to overstretching, or the printing plate is in the process of being stressed. Deformation due to non-uniformity. This in turn affects registration. Therefore, during the printing process, we need to control the plates, make it even. Simultaneous adjustment of printing plates. Keep the tension consistent at all points. Let's introduce detection and requirements of overprint accuracy in offset printing. On prints, geometric position deviation of contour lines of different colors. It's what we call registration accuracy. Its units are often expressed in units of length. In the printing industry, the requirements for registration accuracy are as follows. For fine print, the overprint error is required to be less than 0.1 mm. For ordinary print, the error of registration accuracy is required to be less than 0.2 mm. Of course, the higher the registration accuracy, the sharper the image. We should improve the registration accuracy if possible. In actual production, we can use the relevant equipment to test the registration accuracy, such as magnifier with scales. Let's take a look. The registration part to be checked on the picture and text below, or the error of the regular line. In these two pictures, the picture on the left, we can see that the 4 crosses are printed in the same position. You can barely see the relative error between them. We think registration is very good in such a situation. And in this image on the right, the relative error of the 4 crosses is large. So we have to improve its registration. In modern printing equipment, we will use a specific register controller to control the registration. In the Heidelberg press, we use CPC control system. Check for registration errors. At the same time, you can also use the control system, automatic adjustment of registration errors. In a sheet-fed offset press, application of automatic registration control device is relatively not widely used. Most operators are adjust the registration manually. This way is relatively easy. And this is a video amplifier from Roland printing equipment. It's also used to control register in printing. With the development of technology, online registration control system is also increasingly being applied to modern printing equipment, especially for web-fed offset printing press. Online register control system is very important. On web-fed printing equipment, usually we will use the camera to capture registration marks. Then, through the computer on the printing press, to calculate the registration error. And the registration is adjusted by the controller. Finally, the ideal registration accuracy is achieved. Generally speaking, registration adjustment on the printing platform divided into the following steps. First, press the registration function button on the menu bar. Open the menu of the registration function. The second step is to press the button of the printing unit. Select the appropriate printing unit. Third, enter the new registration value through the number keys. This registration value will be added to the previous settings. Generally speaking, the adjustment range of registration is as follows. Diagonal registration is generally controlled at plus or minus 0.15 mm. The horizontal or circumferential registration range, controlled at plus or minus 1.95 mm. And then press the register button in the options. The register includes the diagonal register on transmission surface, diagonal register on operation surface, circumferential register and transverse register, etc. You can take a look. This is the overprint control interface diagram of our printing press. Via the button above, we can choose the printing unit, adjust horizontal, circumferential and diagonal registration accuracy. Printing registration is, in addition to the adjustment of printing pressure, another very important regulation process. In the printing process, it is necessary to pay attention to the changes in the registration accuracy of prints. According to the printing conditions, analyze the causes of misregistration, then adjust the registration accuracy through the operation interface. At the same time, the development of automatic registration is also getting faster and faster. In future printing equipment, automatic registration system will be more and more applied to printing equipment. This will greatly improve the quality of our printing. The above is the main content of this course. Thank you very much.